A man who knows to pair rabbit with a Beaujolais.
I know I don't seem like the type.
No, you do.
Nigga, you gay.
For a long, long time.
So, who's the girl? Girl you're singing about?
There is no girl.
I know.
All I can tell you, sir, is that he's gay.
All right. All jokes aside, this video is not about gay people. It's not about being gay. It's not for or against the LGBTQ, anything like that. Although I want to go on record and say, if you have a problem with what 2 or more consenting adults do behind closed doors without your knowledge, you're weird.
Saturday night, nigga, mind your business.
This video, though, is going to be all about that episode 3, and how it didn't really land, in my personal opinion, at least not as well as compared to the version of the video game. And going forward, there may be some spoilers for the video game. It's an old video game, you probably should have played it already. But for those who haven't, this is your warning. This show is going somewhat different direction, which is what we're going to talk about. So whatever happened in the game may not happen in the show, but just be warned, I am going to be talking about a few spoilers for things that haven't happened in the show yet that pertain to the game. And so there's a few things I want to go over, but let's just talk about the episode itself first. Everything about this episode was beautifully done. Bill and Frank's on-screen relationship was shown in an amazing way. Shout out to both actors. They played Bill and Frank perfectly, in my opinion. Everything else was great too. The shot composition, the writing and the dialogue, the song from Linda Ronstadt, the damn strawberry scene. That was a good scene. Almost made me shed a real nigga tear. Almost. Honestly, I don't know much about awards, but if this isn't nominated for an Emmy or somewhere and they're talking to that, I'm gonna be a little upset. It was that good. Now, I think they did a great job of giving us new insight into some minor characters, right? In the video game, you meet Bill for a bit, not as long as we see him in the show, and you don't meet Frank at all. Frank dead. He couldn't take how mean and stuck in his ways Bill was, so he ran off to try and go somewhere else, ended up getting infected and hung himself. You get all this from a note once you find his dead body in the game. No backstory of him, no nothing. So the show doing this is actually pretty cool. I'm someone who's all for world building, and I think this episode did a great job of that. You know, we got to see what the world was like as the infection started, at least from, Bill's point of view in like a small town, but kind of, how people could have survived and could have done things. It was great. And this is something that a video game probably couldn't do, at least not to that extent, because video games and television are inherently different mediums. One major thing I was worried about when starting the show was, in a video game, there's all these moments where nothing's kind of happening. You have to figure out a puzzle. You got to figure out how to get up on this ledge. So you have to go find this hidden ladder over here and move it to this spot so this character can do something and blah, blah, blah. If you play video games, you know what I'm talking about. That would not translate well to TV. So I was wondering how they're going to fill in all those holes. And personally, I think they've been doing a good job with it. Now, some people have been complaining about various things that have been changed. It's almost like they want a one-to-one remake of the video game. But to that, I say just go play the damn video game. Now, if you look up things about manga and anime at all on the internet, you've probably ran into Giga. His channel is huge. He's an amazing creator, makes great content. Definitely check him out if you haven't. But he has this one video that I think fits perfectly here. And it's called The Manga Was Better. Now, one of the things in this video he said that really stuck with me was something to the effect of, if you're adapting something into a new medium and you're doing it one for one, then there's no reason to even adapt it. A true great adaptation takes the new medium and uses the strengths of that medium to enhance the story in some way. Now, obviously for him, he's talking about manga versus anime, whereas, you have manga or comic books, which are just drawn and still images, translating into something that is animated and moving. And that's a big change. So there should be big differences generally. But I still think this applies to a video game being adapted into a television show, or even vice versa. And that's where this episode comes in. It would have been terrible to play through like an hour of Bill and Frank going through everything that happened in this episode, or even probably whatever the game wanted to do after everything you did with Ellie and Joel up to that point. But a show being able to portray that as beautifully as this episode did is a great thing, and it adds to the whole lore and mythos of the Last of Us universe. But all right, I've said it enough. This episode is great in my opinion, and I really only have one problem with it. Why the fuck is Bill standing out in the middle of the street with a sniper rifle while the raiders are coming? Like, if Bill's such a survivalist, he would know to take some damn cover somewhere. Hell, in the game The Last of Us, you're constantly hiding behind cover and shooting from it. This shit made no sense. But as I already stated, I do have some problems with this episode. 2, in fact. And one is speculative and the other is probably minor, but I think they're important. So after you hear me out, let me know what you think. So some people are saying that this episode didn't move anything forward. It was a waste of time. Our characters' story didn't change, our main characters, and they didn't even interact with Bill and Frank in this episode. They're calling it a waste of time, akin to a filler episode in an anime. And I agree to a point. I've already talked about how I think world building is important, so I like the episode and I can see its merits. But for me, it makes me wonder, what about everything else that this game has to offer? When the show first started, I watched the first episode and I thought to myself, I wonder how they're going to adapt everything in the game, like all the major plot points. I don't think they can. And so I thought, I wonder what they're going to cut out to save time, to make time for the important things. Then I saw this episode, and we spent a whole hour-plus long episode, the vast majority of it on Bill and Frank. Whereas I feel like to fit everything else in, this probably needed to be a short piece. Now again, that's just my opinion. But knowing the game, I played the game when it came out. I played it a ton since. I used to love the multiplayer. Actually, I'm still mad at them for not putting any multiplayer in The Last of Us 2 after kind of saying they would. I'm not gonna forgive y'all for that. But your time with Bill in the game is not that long, right? They're, again, trying not to spoil anything too much, but there's some brothers later on that you spend a lot more time with, and their journey is a lot more impactful on Joel and us as the viewer. Are we gonna get just as much time with them? I think they deserve more time than Bill and Frank, personally. But the show creators have already stated that The Last of Us is going to be a 9-episode series. We're 3 episodes in, 1/3 of the way through, and we spent the whole thing on 2 very minor characters. I don't see them being able to give the same attention and adapt fully the 2 brothers later, or when Joe makes it to Wisconsin, or the Winter Saga. I think the very end with the Fireflies, again, these are kind of spoilers if you don't know, but I'm not going to say too much, that might deserve 2 episodes, episode and a half by itself. How are they going to fit all this in? Or what are they going to have to cut to make everything work? As a fan of The Last of Us as a whole, I'm hoping they don't cut too much. I will admit, I think they're doing an amazing job so far, but I'm just hoping that in the future of the show, at least as we near the end, I don't feel like they've missed some important things from the game and then look back at this episode and think, man, they really could have cut this episode down or almost out altogether and added in something more important. And by important, I mean to our characters, Ellie and Joel, and their journey and how they grow as characters. Now, that was my speculative problem. Speculative because, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I'm just hoping. Now, my kind of problem that could be nitpicky to some, I think might be pretty important, and it has to do with the theme of The Last of Us as a story, and how this episode may not really fit with that. Now, to understand this, you have to understand the entire Last of Us story, at least of the first game. So if you're watching this and you're only watching the show, you may not understand, or this may not mean much to you, but I'll try and explain as best as I can. Now, to do that, I've got to talk about another YouTuber. His name is Fat Brett. He looks to do a lot of video game essays, and I've only watched one, and it's called The Moral Puzzle at the Center of The Last of Us. came up on my feed even before this episode. I decided to check it out, and I really liked it. I'm actually planning on checking out more of his stuff because I think he has a very good video essay style. I'm only going to talk about a little bit of what he says, but I think you should go watch the whole video if you like The Last of Us, especially the game. He gives some really good insight. He talks about one of the main themes in the game being loss and loneliness. Every character has lost something. Joel's lost his daughter, he loses Tess. I won't spoil Ellie's loss because it's not really talked about in the show yet, and it's not talked about in the first game either, only in DLC, so I won't spoil it for those that don't know. But she even loses Marlene and the Fireflies. Characters we have yet to meet in the show are also dealing with loss and loneliness in their own way. And a huge part of the story explores how Joel deals with that loss and is choosing loneliness. He's closed off from the people around him so he doesn't have to get attached and deal with that loss again. So on their journey, they meet all of these people that kind of either embody their own sense of loss and loneliness somehow, or kind of reinforce to Joel that being lonely is the way to go, which is a very important theme because going through all this and understanding it makes Joel's decision and what happens at the end so much more impactful. And that this episode changes a huge part of that concept. So again, briefly, in the game, we meet Bill. Bill's an asshole, and he's all like, yo, you need to let that girl go. Getting attached to people sucks. I used to have a partner, I don't anymore. Being alone is the way to go. And this is important for Joel because Joel is still kind of getting attached to Ellie, but is still closed off and doesn't want to get attached to people. Which is why he kind of treats Ellie the way he does, very standoffish. And it's not till later in the game do we really see Joel kind of come around to Ellie, a little slowly, but you can really see his feelings and his attachments for her come out through his actions and his dialogue, going against everything that he's felt himself and everything that he's encountered. Now I know that Joel does not encounter Bill and Frank in the show at this point. He sees them a bit when they're younger, but he doesn't see them where we see them in the game to get that reinforcement. But that narrative theme is just as important to the viewer as it is to the characters, showing us, the viewer, that in this post-apocalyptic world, getting attached to someone either leads to loss or betrayal is a huge part in understanding Joel as a character, his motivations, and his change. It also makes the meeting with his brother later in the story a lot more impactful for reasons I won't say here. While watching the episode, at least at the end of it, something didn't really sit right with me. And I thought about it for a while, and this little video is, I guess, the conclusion I came to. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but because they ended on a happy note and Joel did not go see Bill and get that interaction with him that kind of solidifies that he should stay by himself, there was a little bit of a thematic dissonance going on. Joel maybe not being able to see them together or die together, but getting the note that basically says that they're good and they went out together. And us getting to see all of that, their whole relationship together, and it ending the way it did, just didn't really play nice with the theme of Joel and Ellie's journey. But who knows? Maybe the show's trying to go a slightly different route. Maybe they'll change a few more things down the line and everything will be great. And at the end of the day, Joel can move forward in the exact same way, and not too much will be changed. That's why I said this may be a little nitpicky, but I needed to explore why I felt a little off after watching the episode, and maybe some of you felt the same way. Either way, I feel that everyone that's working on the show is doing an amazing job. I'm very thankful for this adaptation, and I can't wait to see more. So here at the end of this video, this is my first time kind of doing a video like that, especially on this channel, where it's been mainly focused on anime recaps. I've been wanting to kind of branch out from that anyway, so I took the time to do this. If you like it and you want some more, give it a thumbs up. I never asked for that shit, but that'll at least let me know that you like it, or let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll do more episodes like this on other types of medium, or even with anime. Thank you for watching.